It is the biggest aid program in Canadian history. The details announced today to support business will cost the taxpayer $71 billion, and the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit Program will cost $24 billion. With other benefit and aid packages, we are well over $150 billion, maybe close to $200 billion. Who is eligible for the 75% wage subsidy that will be retroactive to May 15th and will be up to $875 a week, up to the first $58,700. So those are the details. But why does it take 6 weeks to get the money to businesses who are struggling with cash flow right now? Let's find out. Joining me now is the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau. Mr. Morneau, first of all, great to have you here. I hope you and your family are safe as this continues to affect every single person in the country. Huge announcements today. A lot of people are waiting for it. Can you outline who exactly qualifies for this subsidy?
Well, let me start, Evan, by saying I'm pleased to be on your show, and thanks for asking about my family. We're all doing well. 3 of my kids are doing online learning like so many other families, and we're making sure we keep safe, and I hope Canadians are broadly trying to take the same sorts of measures. Today, what we announced really was a very important step in our goals to make sure that we're getting people the money they need, getting businesses the support they need in a really challenging time, as we all know. The wage subsidy that we announced today is intended to allow employers to keep employees attached to their business. It's providing up to 75% of their pre-crisis earnings, up to a total of $847 per week. And that's going to allow people to stay engaged with their employer, to have the sort of money they need to keep their families supported. We know it's critically important as well to allow our economy to get up and rolling after this time of crisis. So the intent, of course, is to do all those things. It's significant. As you heard earlier, this is an enormous decision that we think is the right decision to support people in a really challenging time.
Clearly, since the first announcements, the criteria have widened as to who is eligible for this. You said today, as did the Prime Minister, bars and restaurants will be eligible. But I'm getting a ton of questions. I'm sure you are. For example, somebody who is a single sole proprietor, has no employees, but pays themselves a salary. I got a call today from a dentist who said, you know, I still got my bills, but no one's coming to the dentist. Do I qualify? Would those people qualify for this?
The intent is for a business that has experienced a 30% or more drop in revenue, that what they're able to do is they're able to have a wage subsidy up to 3/4 of the income that someone was getting pre-crisis, up to $847. So really, if you meet those criteria, then the answer is yes. You're going to be able to apply for and get this wage subsidy, showing that you've actually paid that amount to your employer, the person that's getting the money. For those people who don't have access to this because they're not attached to a company, so somebody who, whether they're driving a taxi or a personal support worker, a trainer in a gym, those people will be able to go on our Canada Emergency Response Benefit and get $500 a week for 16 weeks. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we're supporting everybody during this challenging time, and also to make sure that businesses have the capacity to maintain connection with their employees so that we can get back up and running as soon as possible as we get through this crisis.
Minister, the CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Dan Kelly, who is with us, likes this, although he says the proof of 30% drop in gross revenue on a month-by-month basis, and that's comparing revenues to the same time last year, I appreciate. But he says for a lot of companies, that's going to be difficult if you're a new business, if you're a seasonal business, or, you know, maybe something's changed. How could that be too challenging and actually cut out people who are desperate right now?
Look, Evan, I know that people are going to be looking for all of the details. We will be publishing those in the days to come. But to the specific things you just mentioned, I mean, what we're trying to do is to find a way to make this work. We've chosen a 30% drop in revenue because that's a significant impact by COVID-19. It's similar to what other countries have chosen for a revenue impact. And what we're saying is if in March 2020, you're 30% down versus March 2019, that's a way you can prove it. If you are a brand new business and you've started up in the last 6 months, we're going to find a way to compare against your more recent revenue. If you're a seasonal business, of course, you'll be able to compare this year to last year, which is consistent. So there are details to put out there. I know that people will all have their views on how we should design this. What I can say is we are trying our best to make sure that we support people. We are ensuring that we can get money out to people as rapidly as possible. That we see is absolutely critical. And we think this is a very important part of keeping our economy healthy, keeping firms attached to their employees.
And Minister, I appreciate that, and I keep saying this every day. This is an enormous program designed in days as opposed to what should take years. So we all appreciate the government is building the plane as you're flying the plane. But one of the big questions today is you said that the money will not flow for 6 weeks. Businesses are in a severe cash flow crunch right now. Why is it going to take 6 weeks?
Well, what we've tried to do is to make sure we can get this done as rapidly as possible. We're doing more than one thing at the same time. We are putting in place what we've called the Canada Emergency Business Account, a $40,000 credit line for businesses to go to banks. The banks have told me that that'll be up and running within 3 weeks. The system that we're putting in place for businesses, this wage subsidy, what it requires is for us to use the Canada Revenue Agency to get the money to employers. What we think that we can do is within 3 to 6 weeks, and we're hopeful that it'll be closer to 3, we'll actually be able to start that running. In the interim, what we want businesses to do is to make sure they have a connection, an electronic connection to the Canada Revenue Agency. A lot of them already do, about 90% do, and also direct deposit so they can get the money quickly. Only about 50% of businesses currently on direct deposit from the CRA. We want them to do that during the same time period so the money can flow as rapidly as possible. But, you know, we're going to have to make sure we get the administration right. We're working every day to make sure we can get this money out as we are to individuals. We know it's crucial, and we're going to make it work.
Okay. But time's everything, and you know that people are being laid off. There's 1.5 million people that need to be processed already or more. Why not give immediate support today? You could, for example, immediately, CRA could refund GST payments collected in the last 6 months. Andrew Scheer's asked you to do that. Or you could just give a direct check, for example, by looking at tax returns and just say, here's an immediate check, and then get it right and wait the 3 to 6 weeks. Why couldn't you do that as a quicker bridge, sir?
Look, Evan, everyone's going to have their idea. And what we've been trying to do is to figure out not only how we can do something that's going to have an important difference and how we can get the money to people quickly. I will tell you that we have been driven by those two issues, and this is where we've gotten to. But this is significantly bigger than what other people are talking about in terms of the scale of what we're doing. Obviously, committing to an emergency wage subsidy that's we calculate will be $71 billion. I mean, it's the single biggest decision that's been taken since World War II for this country. We know that this is important. We know that getting the money out to people is important. And we're doing other things at the same time. We've already said that people are deferring their taxes that would have been due right through till September. Right. That's putting money in the economy right now. We've said to people, small businesses or businesses that have any sort of GST payable, they can defer that for March, April, and May. Those payments would have been due now. So there's multiple things we're doing at the same time. We appreciate people's advice, of course, and we're listening and we're taking action. But what we've done is we've put in place significant programs that are going to be able to get money to individuals, the emergency response benefit, and it'll be starting to flow next week, and to businesses, and it'll be starting to flow soon, and that's what we're working on right now.
Minister, I got a couple minutes, and I want to run through real quick a couple things. Apparently, Parliament's got to be recalled in order to change the legislation to get this 75% wage subsidy up. Why wasn't that in the initial legislation to allow you to have this flexibility? Was that a failure not to put it in the first legislation? Now you got to take more time and recall Parliament.
You know, first of all, Evan, this is such a large program that we think that the right thing is to have an all-party approach. That's why the Prime Minister has asked the House Leader to talk to the other parties to get us back to legislation. Importantly, I think last week we got to a legislation together that could allow us to move forward. And this situation is very dynamic. So as we figure out how to deal with it, we are going to work together with the other parties to get it done expeditiously. So that's what we're doing. The coming back to Parliament will not delay because we're already starting work on the system. That's important. So coming back to Parliament allows us to work together to make sure all of us agree with the significant support that we're going to give to individuals, to businesses. This is really important to work together to get this done.
Jason Kenney, the Premier of Alberta, told me on this program yesterday he's expecting an aid package for the energy sector, which has been hit by the perfect storm, the collapse of the oil price to unprecedented lows, that you will be announcing a special aid package to the energy sector as early as this week. Can you confirm that?
Well, what I can tell you is that we really do understand that this challenge in Alberta is so significant. It is the combination of COVID-19 and the OPEC situation. The wage subsidy that we announced today will, of course, support businesses across the country, including those businesses that are very challenged in Alberta because so many of them have had that 30% revenue drop. Additionally, we've been looking at how we can provide credit for businesses that are going through the challenge that they're going through right now. And of course, the oil and gas sector, the energy sector is going through that particular challenge. So yes, we've been working with the banks on how we can extend credit. It's across sectors. It's not just the energy sector. The airline sector has been hit bad, the hospitality sector more broadly. So the answer to Premier Kenney and to people in Alberta is we are working hard to find a way to make sure that we can be supportive of all Albertans, but all Canadians as well.
Okay, I got 30 seconds here for this. Air Canada just laid off over 15,000 workers, sir. Will the government bail out that company, or should they have availed themselves of these massive programs and rehired those people?
We hope that businesses like Air Canada, like any business going through this massive change in revenues, will look at this program and say they can rehire their people and they can pay them up to $847 a week if it's 75% of their income. So that is what we're hoping. Additionally, for businesses across many sectors, we are going to be looking at how we can ensure that we bridge this gap so that we have an economy that's strong afterwards. Of course, that includes the airlines. It also includes businesses in other sectors because we want our economy to be intact. We want great jobs. We know the situation is temporary, and we need to bridge it and support Canadians along the way.
Finally, TD Bank is projecting a deficit in 2020-2021 of $180 billion, 8% of GDP. Is that number accurate, and does it worry you?
It's far too early for us to be coming to numbers like that. We are in a dynamic situation. What we're going to continue to do is focus on how we can ensure people can get through this crisis, make sure that we have an economy afterwards by supporting businesses. And that means we've got to make the kinds of investments that are going to be supportive. It will certainly be something that we have to make much more significant investments than we ever could have imagined. But the good news is we start with an excellent fiscal position. We have the capacity to do that. We will come out of this and be able to continue to be strong because we've made the kinds of supports that are necessary in this time. So we'll look at those analyses, but we will continue to make the investments we need to make.
Minister Morneau, I appreciate your time, an incredibly busy day, and an historic announcement today on the size of this program. Thank you, sir, and do take care of yourself and your family. Thanks, Mr. Morneau.
Okay, thanks, Evan. You too.